Hello, and welcome to the Meditation Movement podcast with the British School of Meditation.
In this podcast, we will share all things meditation, including showcasing the wonderful work that our register of meditation teachers are doing all over the country and further afield in helping so many people benefit from this amazing practice.
Meditation and community are our two biggest passions, and we can't wait to share them both with you in this space.
So sit back, relax, maybe even close your eyes, and don't forget to breathe. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome to the Meditation Movement podcast. I'm absolutely delighted today to have Caroline Hitchen here to speak to us. Caroline, as we're going to find out, has a wonderful variety of roles which incorporate meditation. So welcome, Caroline. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to see you, and hello to everybody who's listening.
Thank you, thank you. So we're going to start off with the many different roles that you have, and this is what delights me in the fact that meditation is obviously a big part, but also you are a hypnotherapist. You also work in employment law. You also run sound baths. But you work in the corporate with stress and resilience training. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So I sort of like to explain to clients, and I suppose it depends on which client I'm talking to as which bit comes first in the order. So historically, back in the day, I started life with a business degree, what was called personnel in those days. Then I went into HR, and I became a solicitor. So that was sort of one trajectory, which keeps me sort of stuck in the corporate world. I still can't quite get out of wearing black because that's what I did, and I still do it now. So when the worlds mix, people expect me to come in wearing flowing crystal white dresses, and I come in a black suit, and they think, okay, interesting. So I've done that for a very long time. But yes, I've then also had an interest probably back as early as 1995, I guess, when I bought a book called The Lazy Man's Way to Riches by a chap called Joe Carbo. A very unusual book of its time. And in those days, of course, there wasn't the internet. So I don't know how. I think I saw the advert in a newspaper. And he introduced the concept in this book. It was a fascinating book about how you thought might have some sort of impact on your life. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I've never heard about this before. Most people just get up, do their thing, carry on, go to bed, back to bed, up and repeat. And the thoughts that come into your mind just sort of happen on a loop and you go with them. And he was saying, well, actually, how you think might actually dictate what happens in your life. And in it, he talked about meditation. And I'd never really heard about meditation. If I had, it was a sort of a thing the Beatles did in India in the 60s. And you imagine crystals and chanting and monks and things. So I thought a bit strange, but looked into it and then began to buy books. And I can't remember when Amazon started, but if I go back on my purchase history of all the books over the years, every book on meditation I could find, and just started reading more. And out of that interest, our family business, so we've got employment law here, we've got this trajectory here of interested in meditation, the family business, we used to run health clubs, and we work with corporates, we do management training, motivational training, coaching. And as part of that, became interested in stress and resilience. So we would and still do work with corporates on managing their stress responses, which was a little bit niche at the time. Now I think it should be right up there with leadership skills. I think if you want to be a good leader, you have to have a hand on this. And so we were working with stress and resilience. We'd put a monitor on people and we'd, give them a report and talk about it. And meditation, it became clear to me, was one of the single biggest ways we could actually improve our resilience. So in calming the mind and the body, that affects our stress response, which affects our sleep, which affects all the good things. So I've suddenly got sort of three channels going now. We've got employment law, we've got the meditation interest in the middle, and then we've got the stress and resilience, which now links into meditation, out of which I became very interested in sound bath, because that's meditation plus sound. So you're relaxing the body, but the mind is having an input. And then out of that, I became interested in, well, if we can really think about our thoughts and calming our minds, is there something else we can do when we're in there that might actually help us, such as deep-rooted things? Sometimes things consciously we struggle to get rid of, but subconsciously we can have a go. So that's where the hypnotherapy came in. So It's a very long answer to your question, but most of them are interwoven with the employment law still over here.
I love that though, and I think what a variety as well. And for you personally, what interest that can bring. That it's our purpose, isn't it, in life, and being able to have such a broad way of following that purpose, I think, is just superb. Also, I think by keeping in the employment law side of things, you're much more inclined to still be able to understand in corporate things that come up in a working environment, and I think that that's so wise as well. That there must be a trust that when you go into a corporate environment, that they feel with you, that you do really understand what they're going through and what it's like for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it helps as an intro. So when I talk to corporate groups, so I walk in with my black suit on, and then they maybe haven't been expecting that. But when I run through my list of hats, I think the fact that I still work with some employment law clients. I have a complete variety in my week, which means my mind is sort of quite, I sort of think quite fast, quite sharp, straight into the detail. And I think it means people are able to listen. So when I say I do this, but also over here, I find this is really important and helps me in my business life, because it's a tool that, I think if we're not doing it, it only adds benefit. And people do tend to think, okay, maybe we'll listen to what you have to say. So it's definitely a useful hook in, I think.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. We, to take you back, so you learnt to meditate. This book sounds fascinating as well, but it's those moments that sometimes happen. Sometimes people aren't looking for meditation, but it finds them, and that was certainly the case with you. So you read that book, you started meditating yourself. What then led you to come and train with the British School of Meditation?
Well, that's a really good question. So I didn't on purpose come and train with the British School of Meditation at all. That was another of those strange little paths in life where, you can look back and think, well, I could have done that, and I actually did this. Um, but I'd read all the books. I was continually reading books. I was doing it my way, which I thought was the right way. And there is no right way, really. It's about quieting the mind, isn't it? Stopping that monkey mind, that chatter, just becoming calm. But I thought, it would be nice. I'd love to go to a local class and sort of see what other people do, and see if there's some method that I could learn, and sit with others in a nice setting. And so I went online, I had a look, and there wasn't one class near to me. I couldn't find any. And this was, gosh, quite a few years ago now. I'm sure there'd be loads if you look now. There was nothing. But what did pop up when I was searching was the British School of Meditation. And there was a fascinating web page that said, come and train as a teacher. So I thought, well, do you know what? Even if I don't become a teacher, it would be really useful, because I'm sure it talked about all the things that you cover in the class, and it was every type of meditation. So, there was no stone left unturned. By the end of it, you were going to know about meditation and have some practices yourself. So I thought, well, I'll do this. I'll go along, and I'll go through the process, and see what I do with it. So I did go along, and it was absolutely, I met some super people. We literally covered in depth every single type of meditation. We learned about them all, and it's not just about the meditation; it's about the science. How do we know it works? Where's the hard fact? Which, from my law background, I loved. So we covered every type. We covered the science. We practiced everyone in the group, and then we learned about applications and business. So it was a super course, absolutely brilliant. And I came out of it and thought, no, I actually want to teach this. There's so much to it, so much more than I'd ever realised. And that's how it developed from there. So best thing I ever did, really, and just fascinating insight into. I hadn't thought about the science. When you read books about meditation, you don't really think about the science, and it's one of the questions that a lot of corporates ask. How do we know it works? You're saying this to us, but how do you know that when you tell us that if we do this, it's going to have these benefits? And of course, there are over 6,000 peer-reviewed studies now, on the benefits of meditation. So there's tons of science out there if that's what you need before you start.
I totally agree, because actually meditation will take a bit of time from your day. So people want to know, is it worth doing? Is it worth my busy life taking that time out? Am I actually going to get anything from it? So I think there are certain audiences that really, really benefit from knowing actually there are physiological changes, and they can be lasting as well, with a consistent practice. I think it's so compelling, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, the other thing about meditation is it's a bit like going to a restaurant, isn't it? Saying, I'd like some food, please. And they say, well, what sort of food do you want? Do you want to starter? Do you want a main? Do you want Indian or Chinese? You can't just say, I'm going to meditate, because it, in and of itself, it doesn't mean anything. Because under that umbrella of meditation, there are so many different types, and different ones have found to have different benefits. So a loving kindness meditation, for example, has been shown to help with migraines. It reduces the frequency of them, and also the intensity. So if you're looking for an outcome, you might say, well, I'll try that meditation, or I'll try that meditation. So again, it's finding out what it is that you want, and then which bit might serve you.
Exactly, and also how you can incorporate lengthy practices into small bite-sized pieces every day, which is stealth meditation, isn't it? And that's really useful for, I think, corporate people who work in the corporate industry, to know that they don't always have to wait until later to sit in the practice. Before a meeting, there could be something that they do. Yeah.
Absolutely, and even teaching them things they can do in the meeting that people may not observe. There's certain things you can do while you're sitting that nobody else can see. So, and I think you're absolutely right. When people are busy, adding something else in. I mean, we are completely rammed, aren't we? And I think this is the biggest culprit. From the minute we wake up to the minute we go to bed, we are bombarded with input, sensory input all day long, and because we're so busy, asking someone to take a bit of time out to do something which is unusual is quite a big ask. So unless you can show that there is a benefit to doing this, I suspect most people just probably wouldn't bother trying, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, do you find that there's any resistance to learning meditation in the corporate world, or are they pretty open to it? What do you
Um,
find?
yeah, I think a bit of both. So one of the courses I teach a meditation hour on. It comes in later in their week, and I'm not sure what the title of it is. I think it's called Busting the Myths. So when I come in, you can see people are thinking, oh, we've got to go through this. We're busy executives here to learn about management, and who's this coming in. So I do it in a very light-hearted way. So I always find out who's on the course, and I find out in one of the courses I teach, they ask them who inspires them. So I tend to put up some slides of who meditates in the media. So we've got the David Beckhams and all the usual ones, put a few sports people in. Then my next slide, I've had a look at who inspires them, and I find a link, even if it's tenuous, and a quote from each one, the people who they said inspired them. And so this slide goes up, and I say, well, there's so and so. It might be Mahatma Gandhi, or it might be whoever. And the little quote that links to meditation. And after I've put about 4 or 5 up, they start to twig what I've done. And of course, everyone laughs and thinks this is very funny. But it does get them to buy into thinking, okay, so all these famous people do it. These people that we like have some link to it. Maybe I need to listen. And then we bust all the myths. You haven't got to sit in a special place, or with things around your neck, or humming and chanting, none of that. And then we break it down to its absolute nuts and bolts of, so some basic calming down of the body. And we do a couple of little exercises, so that by the end, and I say to them, just start with 3 minutes. And how many of us here can breathe? Everybody can breathe, right? So has everyone got 3 minutes a day? And no one dares say no, because clearly, I say, if you haven't got 3 minutes, come on, I wave a phone at them. So by the end of it, I know they're all open to having a try. But I think initially you're absolutely right. There is some, oh, why have we got to sit through this?
Yeah, and it's really interesting, because if you think about that kind of really stems from the 60s and the hippie movement. And, like how long ago that was, 60 years ago, and that people still think that it will make them a little bit weird or hippie-like if they meditate. It's really
Yes.
interesting, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there are so many connotations with certain words, and I asked them to put up on the whiteboard, what do you think of when you hear the word meditation? And people do. They write up monks, they write up crystals, they write up cross-legged. That's so too. I mean, if you look on, if you do a meditation, what's it called, emoji, when you're typing a text, somebody comes up sitting cross-legged like this, and that's what comes up. So people can, can't be blamed for thinking that's what it is. But I think because people have negative connotations, I think they also think there's something very special about it that they don't know, and it's only open to sort of monks or nuns or very strange people sitting on top of mountains. When you break it down and say this is really all you need to do, let's have a little practice now. And I say, if you're wearing a wearable, have a look at your heart rate before we start, and then have a look at the end. So we have some real time data, because virtually everybody's heart rate goes down.
Mhm.
So if nothing else, when we've done a 3-minute meditation, just some breathing and chatting, everybody's heart rate has come down. So at the end of the session, they know that if nothing else, this will bring my heart rate down, and that's got to be a good thing.
A really good thing. And that is something else that you cover as well, isn't it? Heart rate variability. That's something else that's part of like one of the hats that you wear with the stress and resilience. So tell us a bit about that as well.
So heart rate variability, very, very basically, will give us an indication as to how our nervous system is working. So a certain branch of our nervous system, which tells us at any point in the day, there's sort of two branches, we won't get too scientific, but there's the parasympathetic, which is the rest and relaxation side. And over here, there's the sympathetic, which sort of sounds like it's the calm bit, but it's the bit that gets us active and ready to do something. So both systems are in play, but usually one is dominant. So when we're sleeping or when we're sitting and relaxing or reading or meditating, then we're in a parasympathetic state. And when we're moving or when we are doing something which gets the body innervated, if you like, then we're in a sympathetic state. And the balance between the two is really important. So we want probably about 35% of our day to be in a rest and recovery state, and the rest of it we would expect to be in a sort of an active state, because even now, if I was wearing a monitor, even though I'm sitting down, because my hands are going and I'm talking and I'm thinking, I'd want a little level of activation. So what we measure is the balance in people. And if you sort of did the maths right, you'd work out that 30%, if you spent most of your night in this rest and recovery state, that's perfect, that's enough. But most of us don't. And what people don't realize is that everyday things affect that state. So caffeine, alcohol, stress, illness, worries in the background, all of these can upset that balance. So people find, and we put monitors on and then we show them their reports, and they find that they're spending 80% of their day in an active state. So their body really isn't having time to recover and to rest as it does. And then, of course, you start to get small signs of coughs and colds and cold sores, irritability, headaches, all the little symptoms. And then longer term, it can become chronic. And it's a matter of resetting that balance. And meditation is brilliant. So when we ask people to do a little test, and when they're wearing the monitor and they sit down for a little practice, even if it's a few minutes, you see that stress response come down and then start heading into relaxation. Now, sometimes if they're really stressed, it won't head them into relaxation, but it will bring the stress response down. So some tiny little meditative practice, as you were saying, stealth practice, in the moment, in the day, a couple of times, can actually have a huge difference to how you sleep, to the next day. So it all piles on. If you add it into the sleep and to exercise and good food, meditation's there. It's one of the pillars that if we had that every day, would make a huge difference. And when people realize, and you can stand and teach people this stuff and it slightly goes over the head. When they wear a monitor and they look at their data, do I recover at night? Because one of the biggest myths, I think, is that people think when they put their head on the pillow at night, they recover all night. I mean, why wouldn't you think that? It's sort of logical, isn't it? What they don't realise is what they were doing beforehand, whether exercising or drinking or coffee or all that stuff, can wipe your night's recovery. So meditative practice just resets that balance. And the link is incredible. It's absolutely fascinating. And it happens really quickly too.
That's so interesting. And as well, and I think sometimes when we're in a busy world and focus is very much on work, sometimes we do ignore all the other parts of our being, such as you mentioned in sleep, diet, exercise. Sometimes I think people often see exercise as like, well, that's really good for my mind and it can really stress. But they are, as you said, these pillars, I think that's a wonderful way of looking at it. It's not just meditation, it's other things as well, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it's no good meditating if your diet's lousy and you drink too much and you never get any recovery. It's better than not doing it, but actually it's part of a sort of balanced system, isn't it? So, as I was saying earlier, I think when I talk to leadership groups now, to me, this is as much a leadership tool as anything else. Having this balance right, putting some time in your day to just bring the mind down, calm the mind down, just to reset, just put all that chatter away and just have a few moments, I mean, longer if you can, just to reset, helps you be a better manager and a better leader. That's the point, So if you want to be at the top of your game, this is something to have in your armory.
Exactly, and it brings much more creativity to the role as well, doesn't it? That there's some brilliant science research, and I think a lot of organisations, some of the bigger organisations, really advocate meditation in order to help creativity flow within the organisation as well, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. Because if you look at the sort of reduction of sick days, if you have this balance right, then your attendance is going to go up, your sick days are going to go down, your ability to be present and to create. Because if you're in the stress response, you're just doing the absolute necessary. It's a crisis mode. You can't think straight, you can't plan, you can't be creative. And so to bring in a practice, if you said, maybe every lunchtime I'm just going to pop, like I say to clients, even if you need to go to the loo and set your phone for 3 minutes and just take that time, that's going to have huge benefits for when you go back to work.
Yeah.
I think it was L'Oreal have what they call a sleep bus, which turns up at I think it's their Paris headquarters every day. And there are three little pods. I'm not sure if they still have it. One is you put on headphones and have a little meditation. One you can have a shoulder massage, and the other one I think you can have a little snooze. And it's fully booked every day. And they're
Gosh.
bang on the money, because those employees, they go back better able to work that afternoon, they sleep better that night, and the next morning they come back in better able to work. So it's a business tool. Businesses would have better bottom line results if they paid attention to their employees' resilience, and meditation is a huge part of that.
Because if we think of like the sympathetic and nervous system, well, the parasympathetic state as a kind of brake and accelerator, it's no good to business leaders if their staff are constantly got foot on the accelerator. They're just going to crash. That's it, isn't
Absolutely.
it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, long term they'll crash. Short term, we know people make far more mistakes. One of the first things that goes wrong is people make more mistakes when they're too sympathetically dominated all the time. They make mistakes. Their interpersonal relationships start to deteriorate. They get. So imagine on a Monday morning you come into work and you've had a really tough weekend. The kids been up and you haven't had much sleep and you've probably drunk too much. You hit your desk on a Monday morning. You've got 85 emails and it's just too much. And someone says something and woof, it all goes wrong. You compare that to Friday with 85 emails, but you've had a good week and you've got a lovely weekend coming up. So exactly the same circumstance, but how you're feeling and your resilience completely different. And then you just cope and you laugh it off. So paying attention to that energy system, to our balance. How have we slept? How is our mind? Have we taken some time out to calm down? Are we eating the right things? Are we getting enough exercise? If you actually, and because they're so basic and we do them all every day, it's not difficult. It's not loads of things to start changing. It's a few little practices done consistently that
Yeah.
makes a huge difference.
It really does. It really does. So you're now developing a new program called the Emerald Method. So tell
Yes.
us a bit about that.
So the Emerald method is it's got hypnotherapy in it. It's got some meditation, some calming practices in it. It's got some looking forward, some looking back, and then some tools at the very end. Because having done some hypnotherapy, it's great. I mean, there's no bad hypnotherapy, but this is almost plus. So sometimes you might go for a session and people will say, "What are you here to do?" And they'll put some positive words in, which is great. But then it might leave you sort of hanging. So if you go back to your life with the same sort of thought processes before, probably something else is going to pop up. So this is a much more holistic approach. So let's go back and find out what caused it. Let's put that right. Then we'll go forward and say, where do we want to be? And the last session is where we talk about meditation, where we talk about all the daily tools, so the gratitude practice, what to do before you get out of bed in the morning, what to do before you close your eyes at night, where to put the meditation in, practices that are going to help you start to reframe your thinking and calm the mind. So it's much more of an holistic approach. So it does more things than just a hypnotherapy session, because that's great in and of itself. But I think we need more. So the last session brings everything in that I would be looking at. So it will bring in your resilience, some meditation, some calming, maybe lots of links to sound baths and white noise, things we can listen to if we find it hard. People find it hard to just start meditating. So give yourself a go. Put on some white noise, put on some sound bath music, because it just lets the brain calm down. So the last session really is all about, okay, we've done the work. Now you have to go back out into the world, and I'm not going to come with you because I can't, but this is everything you need to help you be ready for success. So it's a much wider, it's 4 sessions, but it's a much wider program. So at the end of it, you've sorted out the problems, you've put in the new stuff, and now you've got some tools. So yeah, it's a very exciting program.
It sounds really empowering. That's what it sounds to me, that it's about, some people are a bit lost, where they are, and that really you're giving them steps to empower themselves. And it sounds like the last session with the meditation, that's the kind of the moment where they go, well, I can self-access this.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Yeah, really great. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is about empowering people, and it's about enabling people to realize that they have whatever they need within them. They don't, we can help with a kickstart. And sometimes you want to know, why have I never got any confidence? Or why can't I lose weight? Or why do I smoke when I don't want to? So we look at the why, where did it come from? And I know some people don't believe in looking back, they just focus on the now, and that's great. But I think it's quite useful to say, gosh, it's when I was 6 and that person said that, and that's what it was. And my subconscious mind is still running on a 6-year-old program. Hey, well, let's sort that out. So sort that out. Now, who do we want to be? Whether it's I don't want to smoke, or I want to lose weight more easily, or I want to be able to talk in public, whatever it is. So we create that future you. And then we look at the tools. So rather than going back to your life as the old person, having done this now, and we talk a lot about thinking, because I think the problem is a lot of people get stuck in thought patterns, and they think they're at the mercy of this mind, this chatter. It just happens all day, and if you don't realize, you can stop it and say, actually, I used to think that, but there's no reason why I couldn't now think this. And then the energy rises, you feel better, and in thinking better thoughts, life just gets easier. Was it Mark Twain who said, a lot of terrible things have happened? I've thought, what's the quote? Something like, loads of terrible things have happened in my life, some of which actually occurred. His point was
Yes.
something like, all I've done is worry about terrible things, and only a fraction have ever happened. And so we spend our lives either in the past or in the future, and very often not now. So this is where the mindfulness meditation is. Find the joy in now. What good thing could I say about now? There's always a better feeling thought. So I'm sitting here, I'm talking to lovely Sarah, having a lovely chat. There's a plant in the background making me feel energized. It's a nice day outside. There's always a good thought, isn't there?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, but I've got all this work to do, and that popping in, but actually just finding the joy, just being really mindful. I'm sitting here with you and we're having a lovely chat, and everything else can wait. And so teaching people to just catch their thoughts and change them, it's literally life changing. When you realize you can change your thoughts and you can calm down in the moment, it changes your life.
And
So
I think that's what meditation is essentially about, that we are going to have the thoughts. The thoughts are there because actually that's plugged into our sensory system that's assessing stimuli. But what we can realise is that we don't have to identify anymore with the negative thoughts. We don't have to identify with the stress that they bring. And I think that's the moment, isn't it, when people really grasp that. Yes, you're still going to think, these thoughts are there. You just don't have to identify with them anymore.
absolutely.
And it sounds like you're just taking it that step further, going, well, what else is there? Oh, look,
Yeah.
there's some positivity as well. Yeah, that's
Absolutely. And then bizarrely, you find the negative thoughts come less often. They literally come less often, because when you learn to just let them float by and put in something more positive, and that doesn't mean being Pollyanna, but there's always a different way of looking at a situation. It doesn't mean don't be cross or don't grieve. Of course, those things are there. But even when you're grieving, you might say, well, I'm just so sad because I had such a good relationship with that person, which doesn't mean don't be sad and doesn't mean don't grieve. It just means celebrate. If I weren't sad, it would mean perhaps we hadn't had such a great time. So I'm so sad because I love them so much, and that's actually sort of happy thought too. So there's always a different spin, isn't there? Choosing a slightly more positive way of looking at it, and that's it. That's everyone's choice. It's within all of our power to do that at any point.
And I love that in meditation, because that's sort of often what we look in gratitude meditation, is that in equal parts of there being things that are wrong, there are equally things that are right. The brain is going to seek out the things that are wrong because it's doing its job, it's keeping you safe. But you can also reflect and be able to see the things that are equally right as well, and then you feel good. You feel good because you know,
Absolutely.
it's not denying the things that are wrong. Like you just said, they exist, they're
Yeah.
there. But equally, you can also acknowledge, there's a bad night's sleep, but equally, I had a lovely bed to lie on,
Absolutely.
and it can be
And
simple
and it's
things.
gone, and I
Yeah,
can't change it. And the bad night's sleep, can I change it? No, no point worrying. But hey, I'll have a great night's sleep tonight, and
yeah,
that's all okay too, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely. So I want to come back to you and your practice. What is it that you like to turn to on a daily basis? Is it just one thing? Is it a few things during the day? Do you kind of enjoy the stealth meditations as much as the sit-in practice? What is it for you? Where do you like to go with it?
So every day I like to do two things. So every day I will take some time where I will just sit, and I will do a sort of a body scan first. So I'll do a body scan all the way down, and then I will just calm my mind. So I'm able now, I found it harder in the early days, but I'm able now just to calm my mind without having to put anything else in. So I don't need to have anything to listen to. I don't need to have anything, I don't need to count breathing. I just quiet my mind. And then when thoughts come in, because they do, and I think we know now from science that it's when the thoughts come in and the bringing ourselves back to center, that's where the growth occurs. So it's never to worry about the thoughts. So I'll just do a body scan, calm myself down with some breathing, and then I will just sit literally in the silence and just sit. And if thoughts come, let them go, let them go. And I'll set my phone for about 10 to 15 minutes to do that. And then I set another 5 minutes of a visualization practice. So I do a visualization. So this is very passive and calming. And then when I'm nice and calm, I'll do a visualization. So that might be anything that's on my mind that I want to picture at the moment. So it might be I don't know, getting something done or seeing myself in a certain situation. So I'll just visualize whatever it is. So there every single day. I do love loving kindness. I find loving kindness one of the most bolstering meditations. It's very outward facing. It's very good for people who are anxious or worried and very inward focusing. Loving kindness just puts your focus outwards. So for listeners who may not be familiar with it, it's a very, very simple practice where you just become nice and calm. And then I like to imagine when I'm doing it with groups, in your mind's eye, imagine a sort of a picture frame as if it's a painting. Imagine a frame, and then seeing in the frame a picture of somebody you love. So first of all, sometimes I put all my boys in there, sometimes I put different people in there, and you just send them loving kindness. You imagine it, and people say, well, what does that mean? So I say, well, it might be the words if you're very visual, it might be pink hearts, it might be just a feeling, whatever loving kindness means to you, send it to them. See them receive it, see them smiling, and then may you be well, may you be happy, may all good things come to you. So I just say that, and then you let that picture fizzle. Then you put somebody neutral in, so somebody you've met in a shop or saw in a car next to you, somebody with no feelings attached. Put them in and do the same. Send them loving kindness. May you be well, may you be happy, may all good things come to you. Then they go. Then the next one is somebody a bit tricky. So everybody always laughs at this, and I say, oh, my husband says, oh, me again, is it in the box? So somebody a bit tricky could be somebody from your past or somebody you had a row with that morning. Anybody doesn't forgive them, just somebody tricky. Put them in. Don't have to forgive them, but you just send them loving kindness. May you be well, may you be happy. All good things come to you. Let them fizzle out. And then you put yourself in the box and then you see yourself. And people find this quite hard because we're not used to sending nice thoughts to ourselves. So you see yourself smiling, send yourself the same things, say the same words. And then at the end, you extrapolate it out to maybe your road, to your town, to your country, to the whole world. And I get people to imagine that a bit like if you're traveling on a plane, there's a map of where the planes go. So I'm saying just see that loving kindness like those sort of plane lines all over the world and send everybody loving kindness. And then at the end, back we come. And I like to do that maybe 2 or 3 times a week because it's such a feel good. At the end of it, you've sent loving kindness to all sorts of people. So you've raised your energy hugely and you just feel better. But it's also great before sleep. So often my husband and I will do that before sleep together because it just relaxes you down into sleep with lovely positive energy. So I suppose they're my go-to. I do like doing a 20-minute meditation, but it is much harder to find the time for that in a busy day. But I can always find time for my 10 and my 5 tacked on top. So
that sounds well. I mean, going back to the first one that you mentioned, the body scan itself. A lot of people don't realise things like this can be self-led. That they can access it themselves, and it's that lovely integration of the body and the mind, which is where we're grounded. When we're grounded, we're of the body, and I think it's such a lovely way to start. But what you just said, that just where you said about the loving kindness, it's something that you and your husband do. I thought, isn't that wonderful to know that that's something that you share together?
yes,
That's really heartening to hear that. What a lovely experience to have together. Even if he says, was I the difficult one today?
usually it is. No, it is funny, but it is a lovely practice, and it is actually the one meditation I found even people who don't ever meditate, and I do it in the corporate classes because it's actually because it's quite in some ways a busy little meditation. You're not telling people to sit there and think about nothing, which is what they worry about. It's sort of active, so I'm talking them through, having a picture, we're dissolving things are fizzing, we're sending things. There's a lot going on in it. So people quite like doing that, but I've never met anybody who didn't like doing it. and every corporate group at the end. And at the end, the energy in the room is palpable. If you've
Mm.
got a room full of maybe 20 people and we're all doing this, and it only takes a matter of minutes. I mean, we just talked through it. What took 2 minutes, if that. So it doesn't take much time. They're thinking about it, and the energy at the end, you could actually feel the energy in the room, and they're all relaxed and they open their eyes. And I say, "How was that?" And they say, "Yeah." We have a little joke about the naughty picture, but anybody could take that away and just do it at any point. I have taped one that I send to people. It just helps them to remember it. And the same with the body scan. I used to, for myself on my iPhone, tape myself a body scan. Um, and then of course you know what you're doing, so you don't need to. But if people are worried about, well, I wouldn't know what to do next and what would I say next, you can just maybe find one or record one and just play it in your ears. And by the time, the part of the beauty about body scanning is in what it does, as well as you feel that you're relaxing everything, you're taking your mind away from the chatter. So in focusing on softening your forehead, softening your jaw down to your arms and all the places, in so doing, by the time you've gotten to your feet, you're not thinking about anything else. So that at that point you're nice and calm, and the body tends to follow the mind. So the mind starts to calm down, the body calms down, and then it's a little loop, and the mind goes back with it. So it's a super little practice, but it doesn't take long as well. I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. As you talked about stealth meditations, none of these take very long.
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty of the body scan is actually just noticing the body. The body will naturally relax itself. We don't have to do anything special for that to happen, which is incredible, isn't it? It's just the
Yeah.
act of noticing, which
Yes.
is which is the magic, where the magic really takes place.
Mm.
So one of the things I know when we were chatting before, and I just wanted to ask this before we go. When you came and did the meditation teacher training, one of the things that you said that really stood out for you was chanting, and that actually it's something special in a room when you share it with other people. It's really special. Is this something that you would bring to corporate, or do you find that it's something that you kind of go, well, you can tell people about it, but it's just one step too far to get everybody chanting together?
Well, it's a really interesting question. I mean, it's one of the things, if you ask people what their negative views of meditation are, they would probably say monks chanting. So
Yeah,
even just the word chanting sounds a bit, doesn't it? I have never been brave enough to bring it to a group. Um, when I did the practice, when we studied to be teachers, and we did the practice, more than once in a room, and I agree. At the beginning, I thought this is a bit weird. We all had a bit of a giggle and we're chanting, I fancy that. Not really wanting to do it, but actually in doing it, and you're focusing on the words, which actually brings the focus. So you're not thinking anything else because you're focusing on the words are a bit complicated, so you have to get them in the right order. And in doing that for I forget how many minutes now, maybe 10 minutes, at the end of it, I mean, you literally could have cut the atmosphere. It was thick. It was just wonderful, a real sense of energy and peace and calm. So I mean, I don't do it very often. Sometimes I play one where I'm listening. But if I was brave and I suppose if I could find some words, I think this is the problem with corporates. You'd have to probably do a series of sessions where you built it into a later one. I think if you did it on session one, it would be too high a bar for people to, they'll do a loving kindness because they don't know what's going to come and we just chat through. But I think to get them chanting, I wish I could, because once they realised the power and felt the energy rise, I think people would all be converted. But
yeah.
possibly a step too far initially, I guess.
Yeah, but that's what's really, I think, reassuring to know that's why kind of why I wanted to bring it up, is that people have this sort of negative association of what meditation is about, and sometimes it is right. Yes, it is chanting, but actually they can access it in a way that feels really safe for them and comfortable for them in the environment which they are in, and it doesn't have, as much as yes, this exists, and yes, it is wonderful. They don't have to expect that to happen when you come and deliver meditation sessions with them, do they?
Absolutely, absolutely not. And I often suggest it, and I give a list of resources at the end of sort of groups. And one of them is a sort of a chanting one where they can just listen. When you put it in your ears, and if somebody else is chanting, it's a lovely sound, isn't it? The
Yeah,
step of you to then join in might be, but just listening, because the beauty of listening to chanting, it just calms everything down. It's a bit like sound bath music. Or white noise. They just calm, they scramble the brain and calm everything down. And so maybe that's a way in to listen first and then perhaps have a little go.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or not do it at all, you know, and that's the great thing. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Caroline, at the moment you're kind of producing a new website because you kind of want to bring everything together. There's lots of different hats, and actually they're very linked in so many ways. So just tell us a little bit about that before we go.
Well, so I've sort of got everything in different pots at the moment, and so people, I've got different email addresses, and I'm trying to create one banner where it's just sort of more professional services or services that are somehow linked. So it'll be hypnotherapy, it'll be meditation, it'll be sound bath, it'll be stress and resilience. So because it's all the same, really, all comes from the same background. So I'm creating a new website, creating a new business to put it all into rather than having lots of little businesses. So currently working on that, which hopefully will have that all done by the end of the year. So it'll be easier to find me. If you're looking for me in any of the bits, you'll go to the same place. So yeah, currently getting that sorted out.
Wonderful. So if anybody wants to use your services, how can they get hold of you?
Probably the easiest way, they can actually go to my hypnotherapy based website now, which is www.chhypnotherapy.com, or email me at caroline@chhypnotherapy.com. So that's probably the easiest link to go to for now until it changes.
Wonderful. It's been such a delight. I've really enjoyed every second. Thank you
Good.
so much, Caroline, for joining us, and we'll see you again sometime.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much, Sarah. Have a great day.